Officials Appreciation Week in NCAA Division II, and we thought it would be unique to talk to officials, talk to two of our officials, Supervisor and Joe Forte and Tommy Salerno. Thanks for joining us today, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I'll go ahead and get started. Joe, I know it's been a crazy, few months. It's been surreal since obviously things completely changed. We were lucky enough to get our basketball championship over with and done and had the excitement of that. But the next week, everything changed. What did the last few months and going into this year look like for you?
Well, as we all know, it's very hectic and we're in uncertain times. As far as it relates to an official, what a lot of people don't understand is when the season is over and referees basically get back to their life, then they start getting prepared for summer training. Mm-hmm. And they go to summer training programs with the various conferences. And then they get ready to go to the clinics and the fall clinics. And then, they're in shape and they're ready to go. They get their schedules. They plan their travel. They do all those things. And it's kind of like the stage that we go through with officials because we're creatures of habit, right? Yeah. And we like to have things organized as far as all that is concerned. Now, with this, it's like you're on hold. When are we going to start? What are the protocols going to be? No summer training. So your mental process of getting prepared for the season has drastically changed. And it's now being mentally prepared for the season more so than ever before because you don't have the tools that you had in the past to get you ready for the season. So it's basically you get into the rule book, get into the mechanics book, you watch some tape, but you're not out there refereeing. And, referees like to have 4 or 5 conference exhibition games before they get into conference play. That'll probably be limited. The scheduling will be limited. Guys that are used to getting 20 games, 25 games in the league are drastically going to be down because of the number of assignments. So it's just a day-by-day thing, and it's just something that we all have to adapt to.
Yeah, and Tommy, I know I've talked to you, on the phone about this, but the same kind of question to you. What's it been like for your referees, officials, as they've been preparing, and what have the last few months kind of looked like if you're trying to figure out how to work and navigate the new normal?
Well, we're creatures of habit. I've been doing this. This will be my 35th year as a coordinator of officials. And, it's like, well, we do the same thing. We finish a year. We get ready for camp. We start looking at schedules and identifying new people for staffing. Of course, as Joe said, this year has been completely different. I represent Division II on the mechanics committee. So as soon as the year ends, we get into our mechanics manual there's 7 of us on the committee and start rewriting our manual, getting prepared for the next season. So we've been meeting once a month to not only do that, but to talk about COVID, our protocols and recommendations from the NCAA as to how we can handle that, from an official standpoint. But following up on what Joe said, it's kind of put us in a little bit of a behind the 8 ball because we use our summer training camps, 1, to train our officials that are already on staff, and 2, to identify new people to bring on board. I've had probably 5 or 6 Conference Carolinas officials have opted out this year, 2 or 3 of them because of COVID, and a couple of them retired. And I've had to pick up, replace those people. Of course, having fewer games this year is going to be an issue for our officials, working less games. But we have study sessions every Tuesday night. We finished the second one last night, so we're using those to prepare our officials. We show video plays, talk about rules, just protocols and the way we're going to handle situations during the year. But it's a unique time. It's changing, and from scheduling to staffing to dealing with the COVID, it's interesting. It changes every day.
Yeah, and Joe, let's stay with dealing with the COVID. Obviously, I just called it the new normal, and that's what it is. Unfortunately, or fortunately, with everything going on, because we're still trying to navigate all of this. As you talk to your officials, how are you getting them prepared to deal with the challenges of things completely being different at everywhere they go, and preparing them to be safe everywhere they go as well?
Well, some of the things that we've talked about is obviously we're going to follow the protocols set up by the league office. So that's a given. But the other things is just, just be diligent in your life and your daily activities, as far as traveling to games. They're not going to be carpooling anymore, to be going by themselves, going right to the facility. Um, in the locker room, right to the court, referee the game, and go home. So they just are going to be in a world that they've never been in before, and you're just going to have to navigate yourself through that and adapt to the situations, because it can all change. Things can change. If we get a vaccine, that kind of changes things. So you just got to go through it. Be smart, use some common sense. Most of the referees understand what's going on, and they adapt. They adapt. So we'll go by the protocol and use good common sense and just handle the obstacles as they come along.
And Tommy, what are some of the questions that you're hearing from your group on, how to stay safe and just how you're going to work through that on your end?
Well, we've even all the way up to the Division I level that we've talked about on our mechanics committee. Officials have told us that they would prefer not to dress at the school, not to shower, come dressed, even doing their pregame conference as they prepare for the game, maybe virtually or on the phone in the parking lot. Have three officials arriving in three different cars. And we're going to ask them, we're going to do a virtual clinic at the end of this month to go over a lot of these protocols and some things that the conference is expecting and what we're expecting as coordinators. And like Joe said, we have to be smart. If I get up in the morning and I'm running a temperature, I don't want to put the two people I'm working with that night in jeopardy. So I've got to be smart and pick up the phone and say, hey, Joe, Tommy, I don't think it's a good situation for me to work tonight. I know a lot of people say, well, I need the money and, I can get through this. But as Joe said, we've got to be smart. We've got to make good decisions and got to think about everybody else. But, we've talked about masks. We've talked about how we're going to handle whistles with, we've talked about the electronic whistle. We talked about the little bags that the NBA and WNBA use this summer, the pouches, about on our mechanics committee as to, social distancing, no shaking hands, only one captain coming out before the game, staying 6 feet away from the coaches. We've adjusted some of our mechanics where we stand on free throws, not ever handing them the ball, bouncing off throw-ins. Just a number of things that we're suggesting from the NCAA that can help our officials stay safer. But the main thing that my officials have told me is they are concerned about dressing at the school. Is the locker room sanitized each night? And again, in our league, sometimes we have 6 people in our locker room at one time, since we do a lot of double headers. That's an issue that we have to deal with. So there's just so many unknowns, and all it's going to take is one person to come in, and if he spreads it to 5 other people, then we're going to have a real major problem in our league.
You're exactly right. And that, and it's unique. And I know a lot of people will find this interesting logistically. I mean, that's pretty much what it's been at the conference office for the last few months, working through all of those types of things, trying to make sure things like that don't happen. I know all of our schools are being prudent and looking into everything they can do to take away some of those issues, but it's definitely still a lot of things to figure out over the next few months. Change the subject a little. I mentioned that it was Officials Appreciation Week. obviously officiating is a very rewarding job, but it's also a very tough job and something that not a lot of people, think about, but obviously is something that a lot of people want to do. Joe, when you talk to people about why you got into this or why others should get into it, what are kind of some of the things you highlight?
Well, what I try to do is, first of all, most people that get into officiating have a real passion and love for the game. They either played it or have some connection, maybe an ex-coach, ex-player, but they have a love for the game. So they want to be part of it. Secondly, obviously, it's another source of income for them, which is great. But the thing that I talk to referees about when I'm talking to them about is all of the fun things about it. The competition, traveling throughout the country, traveling to different schools, refereeing with different people, relationships that you now have with fellow referees. And some of those are lifelong. I mean, I have friends right now that when I started refereeing, we still have a great friendship. And those are the things that I talked to them about. I said, just don't look at the money aspect of it. That's great. But you're traveling, you're getting to different schools, you're interacting with different people, you're right in the heat of the battle. And even though it is a difficult job, I think if you can just maintain the fact that it's not personal, don't take it as a personal thing. They're just yelling at you because, they're pulling for their team. Coaches are going to want to try to intimidate you or try to con you a little bit, all to try to get a call. That's all part of it. And that's, to me, was always the fun of it. And I try to tell referees, not try, but I do tell them, I said, just remember, it's a game. It's a game in the sense that it's you and the coach. That's what I'm talking about with the game, is that he's trying to do things and you're not going to allow him to do it. And, once you understand it, it really becomes fun because now you're not going to outwit me. I know what you're doing. And so, and then you have the interaction with players and seeing kids develop and moving on, to maybe into the NBA or something of that nature, or even going into coaching, and it's great to see their development. So there's a lot of positive things about officiating, a lot of fun things about it. And that's basically what I've always enjoyed about the game.
All right, Tommy, same thing. And those are all great things. But I think one thing that people also, discount or don't completely look into is the recruiting process. He mentioned how a little bit how it happens. But when you're trying to recruit, people or to get more people involved in officiating, refereeing basketball, do they come to you or do you find them, or how does that usually work?
Both. I get resumes or phone calls from people that are on the high school level. And I have kind of a unique situation in that I'm the coordinator of officials for Region 10 Junior College Conference, a Division III USA South Athletic, then, of course, Conference Carolinas, and I'm also the assistant coordinator for the Atlantic Coast Conference. So I can bring officials in out of the high school level and bring them into our junior college program. Hopefully, if as they get better, move them up to Division III, and then hopefully into Conference Carolinas, instead of taking them right out of high school or whatever and putting them in Division II. But, there are a number of ways. Like I say, I get resumes from people that are interested in working Conference Carolinas. We try to identify those people or get a better look at them at teaching camps. We do one in Georgia and one here in North Carolina every year to bring them on, do actual court work with them. We bring in Division I and Division II officials who we feel, they have good judgment in regards to teaching and applying the proper rules and mechanics. And hopefully that's how we identify most of our new people. But sometimes it's, you see somebody as a resume, you think they're the the best thing since sliced bread, and you put them on the court, and you say, oh, what was I thinking with this person? And I probably get 25 or 30 resumes a year. And a lot of that has to do with people know that I'm involved with the Atlantic Coast Conference. So they feel like they can come up through our program and get in the ACC. But that also gives me the leverage and the ability to use a lot of Division I officials in our league because of my relationship with the Division I conference.
Well, I'm going to put the onus back on you. We've talked about recruiting on your end, but Joe and Tommy, I'm going to ask you, and I'll start with you, Joe, first. You kind of alluded to why you originally got into it, but, just kind of highlight that a little more. But at the same time, talk about, why you continue to do it, and what are some of the highlights from your career, I guess?
Well, I continue to do it because I love the teaching aspect of it. I love to see young referees with some ability and try to help them to get to a level that they wish to get to. Not all of them are going to get to that level. And one of the things that I tell them is that regardless of the level that you're on, be the very best that you can be. Whether it's a high school or junior college or Division II or Division III, that might be your level. And some referees can only get to that level, but be the best you can at that level. If I were a Division II official and that was where the highest level that I can achieve, I would want to be the top Division II official in the country. So be competitive and understand that. And then and I mentor a lot of the younger referees, and what I love about it is watching them grow. And when I was in the Big South and also in Conference Carolina, we had 17, 18 NBA referees that came through our program that are working in the NBA now. And I can't begin to tell you how many referees came through our program that are working a major Division I schedule and are some of the top Division I officials in the country that have worked numerous Final Four games. So it's great to sit back and watch that, to know that you had a small part in their development, and you can teach them, but in the final analysis, you can take them to the water, right? Yeah. Then it's all on to them. You just help to give them the tools to make right decisions and good decisions. As far as highlights for my career, I refereed for 40 years, 22 in the NBA, and then on the collegiate level prior to that. There are many highlights. I had the opportunity of officiating tremendous players. Too many to name. But when people say to me, what was the greatest game you ever worked or the toughest game you ever worked? And I think after I explain my answer, then they get it. The biggest highlight that I've ever had in my career was being selected to work the 1988 gold medal game in Seoul, Korea, Russia, Yugoslavia. And so you would say, okay, well, wow, you worked the NBA finals, you worked the NCAA championships, you worked ACC tournament every year you were in the league, the finals. And I said, well, the reason why is because I was representing all of you. I was representing the country. I was selected, and I couldn't fail. I couldn't fail. So that is the greatest probably honor and highlight that I've ever had.
That's awesome. What a great story. And thank you for looking back on all of that. And Tommy, you've also had that type of career, and you've had been involved in a lot of things. Like, what are some of the things that that stick out to you and that you tell people of your time in officiating?
Well, part of it is repeat what Joe said, is the relationships that I've made. I've got guys that I worked with that we go to England, Scotland, play golf, and we spent New Year's Eve with them and their family. But I started in 1968. I officiated for 45 years. I started in the men's program. In fact, I kind of cut my teeth in the old Carolinas Conference. Before it was Conference Carolinas, it was the Carolinas Conference.
Yep.
And I worked the men's program for about 8 or 9 years before I decided I wasn't going to make the level that I was interested. I wanted to be a Division I official, so I switched over to the women's program. At one time, I had worked something like 33 or 34 straight NCAA tournaments, and one time I was the only person in the country that had worked every one of them.
Yeah.
I worked a couple Final Fours and a lot of regionals and a lot of ACC and SEC tournaments. So I was very, very fortunate. Retired 7 years ago and was hired immediately by the Atlantic Coast Conference as their assistant coordinator. So I guess the biggest thing that kind of motivates me now is just seeing young people or new people come into our program, advance up through our system, go into Division I officiating, and be successful. A good friend of mine and I started the very first women's teaching camp in 1985. And it's still the longest running officiating camp in the country for women's officiating. And I cannot tell you, I go back and look at old rosters at some of the people that have come through our camp now and that have been very, very successful in Division I officiating. So I look back on those things really more so than what I did. I felt like I was an average official who happened to be at the right place at the right time. Just the camaraderie and the dealing with the coaches that I have, and the players in the past 45 years of officiating, it's been phenomenal.
All of this has been tremendous, and I can't thank you enough for taking your valuable time to talk through all this. I want to personally thank you for all you do for Conference Carolinas with your officials, and really just all of our officials in Conference Carolinas. None of our teams, nobody could be successful without the officiating in our league, and it's really special. And I thank you for your valuable time once again today. Thank you both.
Thank you, Brian.